And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Gang Rush Breakout. Now I want to show you something here. This is one of the coolest boxes I've ever seen. You're in some future gang, I don't know, this world of gangsters, and I mean, here they are, they're flipping cars, they're shooting, it's a crazy looking game. And then the game itself is this three-dimensional bridge type thing with plastic cars riding on it. When I saw this, I was like, gangsters and cars shooting at each other, driving across a bridge. I'm in. From CMON, let's take a look at this one. This game has this big board here, which is actually raised up. It doesn't need to be, but it has this kind of these cardboard pieces you put in to place the board and hold it so that you're going up on a ramp and then going and down the board. And there's different zones on the board, and you have these different cars. And these cars are really cool models. They're really good plastic, and each player is going to pick one of them at the beginning of the game. They each come with a special ability, like the green one can shoot in all directions because he has that on the back of him. And so players, their special ability is on their dial here. So when you have these dials, these are important because they show you how many hit points you have. So this guy has a lot more hit points than most of the cars. That's his special ability. And as you take damage, you just spin the bottom half of the dial to show that you're taking damage. It also keeps track of your speed that you're going to be going over the course of the game. So players are going to start here. If you start there, you get some money. You're going to get a certain amount of money to start the game. There's also some containers that will be on the bridge, and you don't want to run into them. And barricades will also be showing up on the bridge too. The game, if you're playing the advanced rules, which you probably should, each player also gets a ramp, which you can use at one point to put in front of your car, which will let you jump over a bunch of spaces, including like barricades and other cars. And as the game goes by, there's going to be different things showing up on the bridge. Now, I mentioned money because this is the money that comes with this game. Now, this is like a set of postage stamps. Now, if you notice, you'll say, wait a minute, you haven't used this money. You're right. We absolutely refuse to use this money. We went and found other money and used different money in the game. But as you can see, the money has little pieces of paper that come off like that. So as the game comes by, I've been waiting till now to tear these apart to show just how ridiculous this money is. That is a $100 bill. It's a really tiny, thin piece of paper. They did this because as the game goes by, you're going to be dropping money on spaces that you've been in, and I guess you can drive over it this way, but it's still a terribly horrible component. So in this game, you're going to be trying to get the most money. The first person to cross the finish line is going to get extra money based on the number of players. You'll see how much money you get based on what position. The last person cannot win, but you get a certain amount of money, and then you'll add that to the rest of the money that you get over the course of the game. Now on a player's turn, they're going to be rolling 5 dice, and they have 2 re-rolls just like Yahtzee. These are going to cause damage to your car, but fortunately they're canceled out by these, and these will repair your car damage if it's taken damage. These symbols will allow you to increase or decrease your speed by 10 miles an hour, and steering symbols let you move. After you're done rolling the dice, let's say I'm going 40 miles an hour, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I have a certain number of turns I can do. Each steering wheel doesn't let you turn, but 2 of them together let you turn. You also have a certain number of free steering wheels depending on how slow you're going. So if I'm going 20 miles an hour here, you'll look and I'll have 3 steering wheels already. So that means I can do 1 turn, and if I roll 1 steering wheel, I can do another turn. So the slower you're going, the more free turns you have, and the faster you're going, you better roll some turns if you're going to do any maneuvering when you go by. Anytime you roll over money, you pick it up. At the beginning of each round, players are going to be choosing these hazard tiles here. You're going to take these hazard tiles and place them on the board. If it shows a container, you'll actually just place the container on the board somewhere. These are police officers, which will be shooting at cars. These are replaced by a certain number of barricades, which will slow cars down as they blow through them. And these, if you're going too fast when you go through this pothole, you'll be taking damage. And so each player gets to put one of those out. Then players get to roll their dice, like I just mentioned, and take turns, starting with the car that's the farthest ahead. Each die that you decide not to use for whatever reason will give you $100. And you can use those because over here, there's upgrade tiles that players can buy, and this upgrade tiles will be replaced, so they might give you better guns. The golden ones there are special abilities, so you have shotguns or one-time usage, and there's a whole pile of these special abilities that are in the game to the point where there are many, many pages explaining what the tiles all do. So no one can push you if you have this in. No one can push you off the bridge because you can push people if you fall in the river. You don't have to pay $500 if you have the crane. You shouldn't be falling in the river anyway. You can go over spikes without taking damage. For one turn, you cancel all shots that are shot at them. At the end of your turn, you shoot straight ahead or straight behind you, and you'll do damage to the cars that are behind you, except for the green car, who can shoot in all 4 directions. And that's it. That's really the whole game. Is you're going to be rolling dice, taking turns moving, each turn putting out more hazards, possibly buying special abilities. As people cross the end zone here, you'll add your money to the money you've gotten throughout the game. Now, damage. If you take too much damage, you don't lose the game. You're not out of the game. You simply will spin out. Your speed will go down to 0, and then you better start rolling these to heal your damage so that you don't keep spinning out and falling farther and farther behind. And, of course, every time you take damage, you'll drop this pathetic little paper money there. So that's the game. Let's go to final thoughts. Now, the cars and everything in this game are fantastic, but once again, I point back to this. This is easily in the top 5 worst components I've ever seen in any game. Again, I realize what their thinking was, but there are so many other things that they could have done. Even little $100 bills that were punch-out cardboard would have been better than this. This is garbage. And this, that component alone drops the game down. We were keeping track of money on paper, which I hate doing, but it was better than dealing with this nonsense. So that's a problem. But the rest of the game does look really great. Here's the problem. And this is the problem with a lot of these games that are of this genre. And I usually look at these games as in like airplane games. Like sometimes I'll play a World War I or World War II airplane game, and these airplanes are all flying around shooting at each other. And when we're done, I'm like, wow, we just played a 2-hour game, and that was 20 seconds of actual time. That same idea here. This is supposed to be like shooting, blowing cars up. And in reality, it's a really slow race. You roll the dice, you're like, You roll the dice, someone dice again, you're like, roll the dice, okay, now how am I going to go? And you drive a few spaces, and then the next person does it. It does not come across as that white-knuckled, and that shooting all over the place. Shooting makes people drop some money. And that you, like, if you shoot someone behind you, they drop money, you're never going to be able to pick that money up. If you shoot someone in front of you, they'll drop money, and maybe you can drive and pick it up later. The coolest thing about this game was the ramp. Like, when am I going to use that ramp? And you're just, like, driving and jumping over. But every turn, everyone's dropping obstacles in, so the whole race gets slogged up. And at least they have some rules that these containers can't be next to each other. You can't like make a wall for people that they can't go through. Although in one of you can play with a track where there's a wall and you just got to go and make a U-turn and come back. But those slow the thing down. The police are totally ineffective. They're there. You can make them jump out of the way. You can push other drivers, which is neat. But again, this whole game just feels like, okay, they're using that Yahtzee mechanism, rolling the dice. This is something done in King of Tokyo, but you roll the dice, and then you move your car a few spaces. And when someone gets ahead, it's hard to stop them, so then people are just throwing obstacles in front of them, which is like an artificial catch-up mechanism. And you get some cool abilities, and while I like the tiles that give special abilities, it really gets tiresome to have to look on these 2 pages here of what all these things do all the time, because they're not that obvious. Each person has a special ability. Some seem better than others. For example, the boss's son gets $200 a turn unless he sells dice. So if he doesn't sell dice, and let's say he uses his dice, he's getting that influx of 200 per turn. That's pretty neat. While this guy, the blue car, had 2 extra durability points. Well, that's not as exciting. I'd rather get to $200 per turn because he can get all kinds of special abilities. The one guy can shoot in all 4 directions, but that doesn't matter if the cars are never really next to you at any given point in time. So it's a really cool idea. I love the idea, but it doesn't play fast enough. There's this concept. It just feels like a really slog. And the game says 45 minutes. It's probably a little closer to an hour, especially when you play with all 5 racers. But it doesn't feel, you're like, well, an hour's not that long. You're right, it's not. But it feels like an hour. It feels really long. It feels like the game should be playing much faster. You're sitting there waiting for everyone else to take their turns. Downtime's a little bit down. And while the whole board looks cool, it's just there. You're just basically moving forward and back and side to side, avoiding these obstacles. So it's really close to me liking this game. Great components, except that awful money. You know, the theme, super fun. I like it. I like the concept of the game. I like upgrading my car and getting cool things. But just a little too fiddly, a little too much stuff going on. I just really can't recommend this one. If a car race needs to feel fast. Dice Tower Judgment, amazing looking, but too muddled.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door.